Ed, last year, companies spent about 40 billion on AI and automation tools, but only about 5% of those see tangible ROI. What's your takeaway on the data quality effect on the ROI and how it can turbocharge the effect on the automation?
First of all, there's not a board of directors on the planet that's not asking their company about what are they going to do with AI and how is it going to change their business tangibly. Principally, they're looking for like efficiencies, they're looking for incremental revenue and those sorts of things. The problem that they run into is a couple of fold. One is the processes that they're trying to apply AI to actually need to change usually when you bring that into light. So when you try to apply AI to bad processes, you get bad outcomes. Some of these tools, when you think about how AI functions, AI is really good like in the middle to middle area, and you need somebody to direct it, give it the inputs, and then somebody to do something with the outputs. And so if they operate off of bad data, the AI is going to inherently fail. For our solution and what have you, we provide up-to-date like candidate profile information real time, so they have the right phone number, the right email address, so that when you actually do employ an AI tool to do outreach, as an example, to a candidate, then you have a higher degree of opportunity that they're actually going to reach them in the first place. So in my opinion, like the data intelligence layer is just tantamount in terms of being able to leverage AI tools effectively. You then modify the processes to be able to better accommodate those workflows and then ultimately feed the loop and produce the results that board of directors are looking for.
And who should be measuring this ROI?
So it's a combination effort. In my experience, what has been helpful is if you have one operational leadership structure that's looking at the whole end-to-end picture. The ability to measure when a lead comes in, all the way to the sourcing activities, then ultimately the placements, and then garnering the revenue. You need to have all the inputs relevant to that particular individual so that they know what their true cost of delivering talent to a customer actually is. A lot of times what we see in organizations is that's very fragmented. And so one person's looking at recruitment marketing, the other person's looking at efficiency metrics with how operationally things are flowing through. You've got finance looking at the revenue and some of the other cost inputs, and you really do need kind of that one centralized ownership structure, somewhere usually in operations that has the accountability for a profit and loss statement in that space to be able to A, measure it, and then B, exact the value out of it. Because ultimately, with a solution like ours, is theoretically you should be able to lower some of those input costs. If you have better data at a cheaper cost, you're re-engaging talent that you already know, realistically, you could lower your recruitment marketing, or you may not need as many like LinkedIn recruiter seats and things of that nature. And that one person needs to be, kind of looking at just the dials and pulling the levers to get the most optimal mix.
We usually see a discrepancy between the expectations board of directors have on particular automation tool they bring into their team and the adoption. So there is a discrepancy that users simply might not be utilizing this tool, which have been having a high bet on. So what's your opinion on that? Why this discrepancy exists in the first place?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of dynamics at play there. One is if they're driving it from the top down, chances are they're very disconnected to the day-to-day. What's actually happening on the front lines, what would be valuable. They may be theoretically thinking that a particular tool could work functionally for them. But once you get into the brass tacks of how things actually operate, it's a whole different situation. The other thing is just the threat of AI on people's jobs. So it's, I have to do my job differently. It's going to make me more efficient. Does that mean that my management layer is going to, downsize our workforce and those sorts of things? And the way that I prefer to kind of think about that is there's a place in it for humans, no matter which way you look at it. Change the job description such that human workers know what their career path is. What tools do they need to learn? What are the new expectations? Maybe they make a little bit more money, things of that nature. The other angle to kind of think about it too is it's one thing to give a worker AI to do their job better, and like they have the free enterprise to go out and actually function with that. It's a whole other thing is if their manager has the AI tool and is trying to affect the work processes. So it's just like different incentives that are balanced in there. So I think, with us being in this industry, it's a much more human forward sort of approach, and we need to pull people along in that process so that they don't get left behind.
Based on your extensive experience procuring technology in the HR tech space, can you share your ideal workflow, how the team should approach selection and procurement of tech?
My opinion is it starts with a strategy, a digital strategy of what you're trying to accomplish, which can start with a business strategy. It could be you want to be more competitive, or you want to expand into new markets, or from a finance perspective, you need to hit certain EBITDA targets for the company. With that as kind of like your North Star, then you look at your core technology stack. In our industry, like that tends to be like some sort of core ATS or CRM platform like Bullhorn or Aviante or LaborEdge or you name it. And then you look at what is kind of like that next integration layer. What can easily plug in, what matches your ambitions in terms of what you're trying to accomplish. Because recruiting is the same no matter where you go in terms of what those fundamental processes are. It starts with a need, with a customer. You go through some sort of intake process, create a job description, post a job description, or you look inside of your candidate database. Then you go and you narrow down that list and do some interviews, and then you go through the offer process and those sorts of things. So it's the same job flow. It's a question of where are the pain points that your organization are experiencing to then settle into my core technology can do this. Here's their perhaps marketplace providers or tangential technologies that can easily connect in with that to then solve those very real problems. I've honestly made a mistake in the past because when I look at some of this technology, I like immediately jump to the end. And it's like, oh, we can do everything in this technology. But that tends to be like, the world's not ready for it. The company's not ready for it. The recruiters, the talent may not even want to interact with like that sort of technology. So you need to really solve for those pain points. So then people are more natural to want to engage with said tools. And it's a question of assessing those technology providers that fit in that space. Some areas that may just be bespoke, they're brand new or they're unique to their industry, and that's who you're going to go with. Others, you throw out the word AI and you run into about 52 different people as you walk across the room, all saying that they can do these different technologies. So you do need to narrow the playing field. There's a couple different ways to do that. One is focus on that marketplace of the platform provider because they've already done the integrations. They've done the vetting of that technology to know that they're compliant with their systems and their standards and what have you. And then come up with an RFI or an RFP proposal. Like, what are those important things for your organization that you want to validate? You get those responses from the different technology providers and you assess, maybe narrow it down to 2 or 3. And then I always say, try before you buy. Like, go out, give them a pilot, make sure that they can do exactly what they're saying, and negotiate your terms, and away you go.
Top red flags to watch when you are doing a pilot and not to pursue with this vendor?
So the first red flag always has been for me before the pilot. It's on my roadmap. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I've kind of thought about it. It's an interesting idea. I don't want to say no to you. Like, yes, we can do it, but it's on the roadmap for some point in the future. Those usually don't pan out. So you want to be able to see like demonstrable experience. When you're dealing with AI tools and data integrity and those sorts of things, it's always good to go through a very structured data privacy assessment. And so most companies have standards around that and what they expect. And so if they fail that, big red flag. And then an AI architecture and an AI risk assessment from that standpoint. Do they understand the regulations that they're getting into? For us, it's data compliance and protection from like a GDPR standpoint and whatnot. And so you want to be able to see like their full certifications that they're compliant in that regard. Then, to evaluate the technology itself, is you want to look at the performance. Clearly set expectations or thresholds of what you're expecting to achieve from an ROI, a throughput, an efficiency, whatever the measure is for that particular. For us, it's enrichment percentages, and have them put their money where their mouth is. Like, if there's a reason, like a tangible reason why you don't achieve those metrics, then talk about it for sure, because there might be some nuance and what have you that you can explore together. But they should be able to achieve what they said that they sold you on.
Pricing. Can AI tools be cheap?
They can, and I would say pricing is all over the map. As I've gone out and tested different technologies, some are trying to do traditional subscription models, others are more like token-based, and then anything and everything in between. So I think what we'll see over the course of the next year or two is that like pricing model will settle itself out. But ultimately, you need to line the tool into what your available budget is. If you are getting some sort of ROI in terms of efficiency, can you lower your budget in one area, pay for it in another? You just have to make the equations work for what's in your space. And if you're very strapped, limited budgets, those sorts of things, like there's different ways to accomplish that with vendors. For us, we have Lite, Premium, and Pro. You get different things with each of those. Maybe you start with the Lite and work your way up as you build that ROI. There's other like throttling mechanisms that allow you to like achieve certain thresholds, get the best benefit and focus for what you want to achieve, but it doesn't break the bank. But I think given that everybody has some sort of AI tool, the competitive pressure is there. So it will, like, natural market dynamics are going to lower that price over time.
How can recruiters decrease dependency on LinkedIn Recruiter?
That's probably the, 10, 15, $20 million question, depending upon the size of your firms. So when you think about why they went to LinkedIn Recruiter in the first place, it's because that's where the most up-to-date talent information is. That is where they could find their candidates, and it was just very natural, high degree of success for them. So in order to change that behavior, you need to give them an alternative. And as a staffing organization, you'll want to question yourself in terms of, like, what is your talent purpose statement? Like, is it important to you to develop relationships with the same talent? It's like, hey, we may be a staffing firm, but we'll put you to work for 6 months, and by the time you're coming out of that 6 months, we've got that next job lined up for you. So many companies struggle with maintaining that relationship, and I actually think AI can help make that problem more simplified. I think solutions like ours, where we're doing the grunt work, if you will, of making sure that the systems are constantly updated in a real-time basis so that hey, that person is coming off assignment, or they got a new license or certification, or they moved states, or they got a new phone number or something of that nature that you can depend on. And naturally over time, then your system of record, your ATS or CRM, becomes that place that they start to shop. That should be where they start from the beginning. And then you fill in the gaps around that where perhaps it's a new territory or your business has grown exponentially, and you really do need to add more candidates into your known database for how you work with them.
We see quite often that there is a discrepancy between the board, who has a high expectations on a certain tool to change the operational efficiency, and then adoption by the users. What's your observation, and why this discrepancy exists in the first place?
The pace of change is just so fast with AI right now. Like, it's so visible. There isn't a board of directors on the planet that isn't asking their organizations to do something with AI because they know it's going to make an impact. If you compare that to past disruptions in history, like the Industrial Revolution as an example, that took decades to kind of settle itself out. And the workforce could gradually work their way into it. The technology had to evolve, the machinery, all the things that came along with it. Now, if you look at the pace of change, and simply just like the new releases for large language models, It's just getting more and more exponential. Every week, something new is coming out. So there's big expectations. They know that it's going to be disruptive and what have you. Sometimes when you lead from the top down, so this is the second category, you're disconnected from what the reality of how processes are actually executed. And so somebody at the top might get sold a really wonderful whiz-bang new piece of technology, and in actuality, they need something completely different. So there's that disconnection there. And then on the other end of the spectrum is AI can be scary. As we're looking to evolve how we do the business of doing work like knowledge work and what have you, not everybody's at the front end of that learning curve to want to be able to adopt it, and so they might feel threatened. So within that, how I counteract that is to solve a real pain point for those individuals so that they can see that this is going to be a benefit for them. It's going to make their lives easier as opposed to be big, dark, and scary. And then the other aspect is create the path for them to come along with you. Like this can be a very human-centric process. I think about like the recruiting function of itself is, yes, the technology can do so much of that work. But let's create new positions that we call them perhaps AI-enabled recruiters so that they know this is the new expectation. These are the tools I'm expected to use. Here's my upskilling path for how I get there. And maybe, pay them a little bit more for those sorts of things. So they view it as a net benefit to come along on the journey with their company. I truly do think that there's this wonderful spot in an equilibrium, if you will, of being able to bring along the human workforce alongside of these technologies. And if you look at even though the tools are capable, like Anthropic just did a study not terribly long ago, as a couple months back, where they actually measured for knowledge-based work, what are the capabilities of AI? And it was huge. But then if you go back and you apply the next lens, which they did, what actually is being implemented at organizations? And it's a small fraction. So pick and choose where you want to start, bring people along, and help reinvent the process to be enabled in it.
There is a lot of noise in the AI space. You wake up every day to the new release. How can company make sure that they are utilizing that exact tech stack, which is helping them to reach their goals?
Yeah, it's as a manager over the space, it's very tempting to jump on the shiny penny wagon. You may start down the path with a technology vendor, and yes, as you say, the competitor comes out with a new feature or a brand new capability, and you're like, oh, I want that. And sometimes you have to resist the temptation. And how you do that is focus on what your digital strategy is. You cannot accomplish everything. You cannot be latest and greatest in real time with all the AI providers and those sorts of things. None of us have the budget for that sort of thing. So pick out what's most important to you, do your due diligence, recognize that it's going to change. And I kind of look at it as kind of like a Lego block system. If you have that solid platform, your integration layer sitting there, that you can plug in new technologies and unplug them as you're ready for it. You have the budget and it's relevant to your business. So just kind of approach it from that modular structure. And if you're in the throes of implementing something new and something really is tempting, boy, you better have a big ROI or a business case to counteract the sunk costs of what you started down the path with. But get the experience with it first. It's as I've done different pilots with different technologies, it's very powerful to be able to say, I did 10,000 interviews with voice AI technology, and this is what I learned. And yes, now I'm ready to change because the voice AI technology has rapidly evolved. You go back 6 months even, and it's a world of difference. And now with that level of technology, you almost can't tell that you're talking to a machine. And that can be scary, but it can also be pretty powerful if done right.
When you just start your AI journey, where do you begin? Where do you search for tools?
Yeah, it does start. It depends upon where your organization is at this moment. There's been a whole wide history of different automation tools and an evolution going back to like robotic process automation and now into things like agentic AI. Know that all of your core platform providers and your solid tech partners are staying current with those trends. And so all of us are experimenting with where do you deploy agents and AI inside of your solutions, and they've got an opinion on how that should affect your processes. So depending upon what size of organization and what your appetite is, then you go down the build versus buy journey. There's some solutions that could be native to your platform, and you wouldn't want to necessarily build that with your own agent solution. Might as well just turn it on. Or if there's technology that is so good that it would take you months and months and months to develop on your own, probably want to evaluate a buy strategy and make sure that it has that solid integration layer. Then your organization does need to evaluate, what's your philosophy on large language models, and how do you want to evolve your own bespoke processes, things that are so niche that you're never going to get a vendor to come in and give you like the silver bullet for it. You also need to have your AI strategy in terms of, from an enterprise perspective, that when you allow people to go out and perhaps create their own agents, that they're operating inside of a safe environment inside of their four walls. But then give them the tools and see what they come up with. And you will be shocked that as you start to give them a little bit of rope in that space, like one story comes to mind around PowerPoint generation. I blew people's minds when I showed them what Claude could do for creating branded PowerPoints in a McKinsey level format. And it just overnight rippled through the entire organization. People are like, I need a Claude license. That's going to save me tons and tons of hours and what have you. And then they become more and more curious. So you kind of have to approach it from many different angles. Definitely leverage your platform partners and whatnot, but have the freedom to create every once in a while as well.
Company priorities change throughout the year. They might sort one issue, let's say supply. The next month they have an issue with a candidate marketing, for example. Does it mean that they have to bring in new and new tools for every particular pain point?
No, I don't think so. Some cases, yes, just because you don't have the bridge technology that works with that particular process for whatever reason. But vendors like us are always constantly evolving the tools. Like, we want to understand your processes, your pain points. We want to be proactively out in front of you, knowing that that's where you're going to head next. And when you find wonderful technology partners, like PitchMe as an example, they are going to be the ones that you want to engage with, those true partnership, discussions. Like, once you get past like the pricing negotiations, all that, like, I get, like, you have to have that back and forth and what have you. But I always view like a vendor-buyer relationship is like the best approach is in that win-win scenario. So leverage each other, talk about what you're experiencing, throw some of those problem statements over the wall to them and see what they can come up with for you.
But probably it's a nightmare. What you just described is a nightmare to any IT manager who is going to be running the CRM and will end up with a zoo of those tools which sit there, but they are used not on a frequent basis, like from time to time. If there is a solution that one size fits all, or how IT manager should be brought in this kind of communication or into this buying process?
Yeah, I kind of view it as the IT manager is very important in that space, and they need to give the guardrails of what you can play in. So I mentioned like large language models before. Like, great that your team members are going out and playing with them, but you need to be in our enterprise version, and these are the do's and don'ts of it. If you're giving them their own developer licenses to be able to do like their own agents and what have you, kind of scary, but do it in our environments. They have it firewalled off for particular arenas that they can't maybe access like all the tools in your enterprise, but maybe just a portion. And then monitor the usage metrics, because you will need to shut some of those down from time to time, whether because they run into a compliance issue, it just doesn't work, or they used it for a period of time and now they don't need it anymore and they came up with something else. So you need to be able to kind of attrit those solutions out as well. But if you find a wonderful IT manager, and I've seen it in a number of organizations where they're like, hey, you know the business, I know IT, let's meet in the middle and figure out like the rule book for how we're going to play together. And the more that we embrace each other, the faster you're going to go and the more creative and innovative solutions you're going to come up with.
But what if organization doesn't have an ideal case when IT manager is giving the freedom for user to choose its tools, when the actually CIOs or CTOs are bringing in their solutions which users don't adopt or they don't find user-friendly? How to mitigate that cases?
Then it comes down to the data. And for as much as those individuals will use data and justification for why they brought that particular tool or change in process and what have you, like you need to be able to rise to the occasion and show the corresponding business metrics and like the reality of what's actually happening and what that adoption looks like. I haven't met an IT person yet who doesn't speak data. And like I would say 90+% of the time, you show them the data, they'll come around.